Hey YouTube, how's it going? Lawler here, as always, with some more RLCS roster information. We got some new rumors and some confirmations as well. Also, we have RL Esports tweeting out some cryptic nonsense, so who knows what they're up to. We're going to be covering all that and more. As always, if you guys want to stay up to date, in the description down below, there is a link to this document, which we try to update as frequently as possible. Also, there's that new in-game update that was just announced too. Let me know how you guys feel about that down below. But the first things we're going to be focusing on is something that we've already kind of expressed already. We talked about how Cheese is LFT. Cheese has made it public, as you guys saw in my previous roster video. I had it pinned as the top comment because that happened before I recorded. But Cheese, now that he's LFT, we don't know where he's going to go or who he's going to try out for. I'm curious to see on how that one develops, as I do think he's a pretty talented player. I don't think if he needs to be if he's not the most mechanical player on the team, I think good things could happen. Like if he's able to be more of a support role and not feel the pressures of like, you need to be the one that makes this shot type of thing. I don't think he has to be the offensive focal point. But I'm curious on where that falls in. Something hopefully with a little bit less pressure. Because Cheese is no longer with the roster, that opens up a roster opportunity for the RMC team. And ironically, keeping with the theme of RMC, that means you have to go with a player with the letter of C on their first name. Chronic, Chicago, something of that extent. But the conversation has been Chronic, which has been a pretty sought after free agent from the looks of things. Obviously with GenG no longer being part, there has been conversations of Chronic going to this team, potentially over to Dignitas with Jack and something else. I will say, I do know GenG is looking to reduce how much they are spending. This would be a good way of doing that. I think if it means not having an organization, Redos and Magic Bear are willing to reduce their salary like we've seen other teams do as well in order to financially secure themselves something regular. Now, with that in mind, I do think this team does provide a little bit of more firepower. I do like the Redos Magic Bear duo, which have been playing together for quite a while. We did see also Raw Greg put out a tweet saying that this was probably one of the harder decisions they've had to make. It sounds like the coach was part of the reason why this ended up happening. I assume it's a team collective effort. Whether Cheese knew ahead of time or not, I don't know. But the realities are is this team's been together for quite a while, and while during the offseason we did see some things ascend and transition into a more favorable situation for RMC, was it a team that was going to go and win majors? Most likely not. My assumption with this is with the addition of Chronic, GenG ends up picking up this roster. I know there is a couple teams that are rumored to potentially pick up this roster, and we'll talk about one of them in a bit here. But it does seem like GenG is the most likely, especially with Chronic being already part of that team. And if the other 2/3 of the roster are going to NRG based upon rumors, I could see that being a possibility. I think GenG is able to reduce their overhead a little bit and spend a little bit less, still get someone who is similar with the brand and in the continuation. They got a content creator. While it's not apparently Jack, Reddles does obviously make a lot of content, so they still have that. So it ends up working out a little bit, I think, for GenG. And if they can do it for a little bit cheaper, makes sense. Whether that will go through or not, I don't know. That's just kind of where my brain is going. But as for Reddles, Magic Bear, and Cheese, no longer, and it now being Chronic, I'm interested to see what it looks like. I don't know what the offense is going to play like, but I do have a little bit more confidence in it, which is weird because I really like Cheese as a player. So curious to see how this one develops. Outside of that, again, I mentioned Cheese. Here's the LFT tweet. We'll put this in the description or somewhere down below. But the big one is there has been a lot of conversation about Squishy now that he's involved with the Cloud9 team as a co-owner, trying to find a roster. I know they were pretty heavily going after the Snowmen roster from the sounds of things, but they want to get in for pretty cheap. I know they don't want to really spend too much money because, one, they can't afford to. Most teams, and I think there's going to be some more that dip out here soon, that just financially cannot justify spending the 10K a month per player type figures. Certain teams that are losing their partner sponsorships, there's some that you may not expect and some that you might. They'll be losing their title partnerships, and because of that, you are going to see a lot less funding to go and field a team, because realistically, like, teams aren't making money off of Rocket League, and if you can't even break even, it's tough for them to justify in what is this esports winter that's going on. So the realities of Cloud9 not being in Rocket League to me is not too surprising, unless they found a really good team or like a good in-between like starter up team for the right price. Whether they thought that was Snowman or somebody else, I don't know. There is chance that this changes. Again, this is a rumor. This is not confirmed. But the reality is if there is a bunch of players that are left without pay, right, you're going to expect to see, and if you guys haven't seen my like roster documents or my theory crafted documents that we talk about here, stop by the stream to check them out. But the reality is when teams do not have an official backing, it kind of changes the mentality of, hey, that spot is available and I'm not getting paid either way. So I maybe, when I was before not considering it because I thought I had guaranteed pay, am now going to be more open to trying something. Like, we may see a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces here as we find out more and more teams just do not have any official backing. You may also see some teams that are willing to accept a much lower pay because it's better than nothing. So if you're one of those C tier, B tier organizations that are in the like 2 to 5K range, I feel like there's going to be a chance for you to come in and play in the RLCS. I doubt you're going to make any money off of it, but I think right now in esports is the time to really get involved. If you can be intelligent about having a proper business model and driving revenue, and then you use a decent salary to incentivize these players, one, to compete, and two, to make sure they're making content and growing their names and their brands, which is definitely needed within the RLCS space, there is an opportunity there. I think, you know, orgs like Deleted, Spate, some of those kind of lesser that, while they are kind of small, I guess is the best way to say it, I don't think they have the staffing to really properly equip a team for what their expectations are. It's a learning process for them, and if they've got the money to do it, like, who's a team to say no compared to no pay at all? So I think a little bit of the leverage going in favor of some of these smaller organizations compared to the bigger ones, especially because the bigger ones are tired of paying these salaries that are way too much. People in chat also alluding to it with potentially T1 coming in. I don't see it, honestly, unless they can steal a roster for really cheap. I don't see it. There is, I've kind of alluded to this, some really big news that could be happening right now. I know there's meetings going on to determine what next steps are. So as soon as I can find out that information, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, there's some pretty big ones that might be coming that might open up some opportunity. We'll wait and see. Outside of that, this is my Theorycraft document we've been talking about a little bit. Conversations with this, I've seen have been NAS or Hoxer instead. For this, it is Chronic is now the assumption, which would then make this something different, whether they go with like a cheese or something. I don't know who they would pick up. Maybe Chicago. I don't know. I honestly don't know where these are going to fill in. I think that some of these are pretty interesting. I'm more so focused on kind of this area, which is the leftovers per se, putting things together. So very interested to see on how that plays out. As for Europe, we're still kind of slotting things into place. I think it's safe to assume that these four are pretty locked in, and then what the aftermath is and who goes where, that is what I'm really interested to find out. So I will do my best to keep you guys up to date on all these things and who's going where. But with that in mind, we also did see a tweet from RLCS today upon recording this video, where they put out a tweet thinking about the RLCS LAN vibes today with a capital B. Many people thinking or alluding to that this has to do with LAN locations potentially that they're leaking or trying to get people talking about, which I'm happy to just see any tweets at all during the offseason from the Twitter accounts. But if I had to guess, some potential options: Boston, you're talking about Brazil maybe. I think there's some cool spots where they could do LAN locations, but I'm always interested to hear on what they may be. The best thing to do is by looking at previous locations as well as popular LAN locations in other esports. Boston is obviously always one that's going to be a potential, but Brazil would be, I'd be so happy if it was Brazil, personally. So we'll see what ends up happening. There's a lot of funny ones in here where people are just changing it. Instead of like North Carolina, they're saying North Carolina, and like Bartlett instead of Charlotte and stuff. And people are ridiculous. Either way, I think that's the point of it, is to get people talking. So my hope is that they announce a roadmap for RLCS with all the details, all the dates, everything to know before the season even starts. That would be pretty great. Either way, that's going to do it for today's video. As always, if you guys enjoy the content, let me know in the comments down below. Things, questions, concepts, description is the best place to find the links, all that kind of fun stuff. But that's going to do it for today's video. As always, like, subscribe, notifications help me out greatly. See you in the next one. Peace.